What's up, everybody? I'm John Middlekauff. You know what I need you to do. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. We got content for days reacting to every NFL game all the time, every single day. Subscribe, like the videos. Let's go. What is going on, everybody? How are we doing? It is, I'm recording a podcast here on Sunday night. The game plan is as follows. I will give a quick opinion I haven't talked about yet, the Matt Stafford news that broke a couple days ago. And then we will do a long mailbag. The game plan this week, I'm recording Monday afternoon night with Colin. I'm sure a bunch of stories are going to come from all the big J's that spent last week at the Combine. So though I'm sure there's going to be a lot of, some rumors flying around Monday. So I might do a podcast as well sometime Monday, and we'll just keep on chugging along. I got off the golf course yesterday, found out on hole 18 that Deebo Samuel was traded, drove right home and recorded a podcast. Not really a podcast, but like a 20-minute reaction that we put out on YouTube. We put up on the podcast feed so you can find that. And piece of advice, if you're ever in a dry climate where there's sun out and the wind is pumping, I started licking my lips heavily because I didn't have any chapstick on about hole 1. And I'll tell you this, it was I should have found a way to get chapstick because I am struggling today. It feels like my lips are going to fall off, and they better not because I'm getting married in about 6 days. So that wind, man, is pretty powerful. But we found a way to get Debo recorded, and we will find a way to record a podcast as well because I'm going through like one of these things every 10 minutes right now. But you don't care much about that. Other than that, like I said, we will have content and podcasts out the all week long. So buckle up, at least up until Thursday, and then we'll see that this fluid situation as the week goes. But I'll record probably a podcast in Nashville. We just got a lot going on right now. I mean, this is a busy time for agencies right around the corner, so we got to keep the takes coming. Before we dive into the mailbag, I do have to give Matt Stafford credit because not only did he make the right move, he did give up money. Now, I've been saying for a while, when you're worth hundreds of millions of dollars, you should be able to make a decision. I mean, that's the powerful thing about life, is when you get to a point in time in your life where you can say no to things or turn things down financially that 99.9% of people would like, wait, you're turning down an extra $50 million. And as we sit here, or as I'm recording this, we don't know the information of the new contract. And we might not find out for a week. I mean, who knows? You don't actually have to find out information on the contracts because they don't technically have to put it in the system right now. Now, who knows? Maybe he signed some revamped deal. We'll find out Monday or Tuesday if the money comes out, but he clearly turned down less to go to these other places. Now, like, you're going to go to the Giants or Raiders, it would not have been a good football decision. It would have been a good financial decision, especially the Raiders. Right? If you're getting $100 million, I mean, at the end of the day, no state income tax relative to California or New York, you're talking an extra potentially, I don't know, $10 to $13 million over the course of a couple of years. That's net money in your account. But like I said, when you've made and you're going to be one of the highest paid players in the history of the NFL, and you have a chance, you've won a Super Bowl, you have, I would say, resurrected the credibility of your career. We knew Matt Stafford was good on the Lions. Like, we know he's a fantastic player on the Rams. We know he's a championship level player on the Rams. We know he's got a chance to win another Super Bowl on the Rams. That would not have been the case the other two places. And ultimately, when you are in a good place professionally and in a situation like a professional athlete, the organization you're working for, the area in which you're playing, the coach, especially, in football more than the other two sports, who's coaching you, who's calling the plays, it doesn't get any better than this. This is what some would call football heaven. And Matt Stafford found himself after being in Detroit pre-Dan Campbell when they were a joke in football heaven. It's fantastic. And he decided to stay. So I give him credit. I give the Rams credit. They handled this well. I do think also, and we're in a day and age of authenticity, of being real. We fucking hate fake. I mean, fake in my business in the media is putting you on the unemployment line. If we think you're a fraud or a phony, no one will consume you. It's like that's just a fact. I mean, you see these people like, "I lost my show." We don't believe anything you're saying. Uh, I think Sean McVay, kind of I don't even want to say he went on a media tour, but him going on with Whitworth and Fitzmagic and just being open and honest about the situation, I think was very refreshing. And if you were Matt Stafford, obviously you have a personal relationship with the guy, but like those are the type people I would want to associate with. Someone that I can have an open and honest dialogue with. And especially like he's not trying to act like, yeah, we don't think you're worth that. Like they weren't even being cutthroat. We understand you're worth more to other people than you are to us. And the only reason you're not worth more to us is because we got salary cap issues and we transitioning out of this former period where we've made mistakes. And you're 37 years old and you go year to year. Like we're not sugarcoating this. And I don't know if you're Matt Stafford, how you wouldn't appreciate that. And clearly he did. And he resigned with the Rams. And it's 100% or I don't even know. Technically he was under contract, but you know what I mean. And it's just the right football move every day of the week and twice on Sundays. Because going to the Giants would have been insanity. Going to the Raiders wouldn't have been as crazy because they got Pete Carroll now. They do have Brock Bowers. They do have, but the division they're in, their still roster is a long way away relative to the competition in the AFC. And it would have been to me more of a money move. Like, yeah, he's going to bank more money, which I'm pro capitalism here. I totally understand it. But I think there's a big difference of like, John, I couldn't turn this job down. I loved the job I was at. I was making 125 grand. It was like I worked with great people. Everything was great. And then someone offered me $800,000. Like those type people totally get. It's like, Matt, you got 370 in the bank. Now after taxes, probably around two. And you spent some money, but you will never have to worry about money the rest of your life. All the children you have will never think twice. Even though I'm always thrown off a little bit of that, like, aren't we rooting for people to like figure it out on their own? Like generational wealth. You mean all the kids don't have to do dick if they choose not to? Is that great for society? But that's a conversation for another day. But overall, props to Matt Stafford for staying with the Rams. And listen, the Rams ain't going away. They're going to be a problem. They've been a problem, and they will continue to be a problem. Okay, let's dive into the mailbag. Hey, John, big fan. I'm from Glasgow, Scotland. Wow, long way away. How much longer can Sean McDermott and John Harbaugh get away with playing second fiddle to Andy Reid and Mahomes? Surely, at some point, these owners need to take a big swing. These quarterbacks are too good. Why not test how much Kyle Shanahan really likes Purdy? As you say, coaching means so much. Shanahan would be worth the gamble with the two best running quarterbacks we've ever seen. But how would they get Kyle Shanahan? Kyle Shanahan is under a long-term contract with the 49ers. The 49ers have zero interest in trading him, getting rid of him. So would the Buffalo Bills, for example, would they rather have Kyle Shanahan than Sean McDermott? Yes. But they can't acquire Sean McDermott. He is not available. It's like, would the Lakers love to have added Steph Curry over the last 6 years? Yes. We can't acquire him. He's not on the table. So I think it's, yeah, I mean, I hear what you're saying. And if this was college, I would imagine Kyle Shanahan would have had huge offers over the years. And that's ultimately the conversation when it comes to Sean McDermott and when it comes to John Harbaugh. It's like, yeah, are these guys good enough to be the elite guys, right? And be guys that can beat Andy Reid? Because right now they're not. But it's like, okay, fire John Harbaugh, or definitely Sean McDermott's probably more polarizing because Harbaugh already has the Super Bowl, even though it's 2025 and that was 2012. But regardless, like they have been knocking on the doorstep with Lamar. Okay, fire John. Who are you gonna hire? Like who you gonna hire? Liam Cohen? And I know he's taken, but I'm just saying, like, what were your options this year? Mike Vrabel? Okay, it's not like Mike Vrabel's ever won a Super Bowl. I like Mike Vrabel, but it's like if you would have fired John Harbaugh to hire Mike Vrabel, I think a lot of people would have said like, yeah, it's kind of similar guy. I think John Harbaugh and Lamar Jackson can win a Super Bowl. I think Sean McDermott and Josh Allen can win a Super Bowl. Like I believe that to my core. Like it wouldn't shock me if either one of those two teams win the Super Bowl next year. Just like if the Lions had been healthy, I believe Dan Campbell, Jared Goff, and that operation could have won the Super Bowl these last couple of years. The 49ers, 2 years ago, could have won the Super Bowl. As long as you can say that, like, I think you're feeling pretty good. Now, just because you can win the Super Bowl doesn't mean you ever will. And there's a chance they never win a Super Bowl. Like, not everyone's guaranteed a Super Bowl. This isn't, golf or tennis. If you're an elite guy, you're going to end up with a golf major. If you're an elite tennis player, you might not win as many Federer or Pete Sampras, but you're going to win some Grand Slams. In football, you can have a long career, never win one. I mean, Aaron Rodgers, I think most of us would agree, is one of the greatest players of all time. He's got one. Same thing with Brett Favre. Now, at least Favre made it to two. Rodgers never even been back. If you would have told every human being after Rodgers won a Super Bowl and then won that early MVP, I think in 2011 or 12, that like, hey guys, this guy is going to play at an elite level for another decade. But he is never, not only is he never going to win another one, he's never even going to go back. I think sometimes we get spoiled by the Mahomes, the Brady, but even like Peyton Manning. I think Peyton Manning, if you would have played his career out 10 times, there are some, I would say, routes of his career that win, I don't know, 3 Super Bowls, 4 Super Bowls. He won 2. He went to 4. Who's scoring big in the NBA this season? You are. With the all-new ways to get in on the action at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. From dunks to assists to rebounds, get behind your favorite player and the prop bets you can make on DraftKings, the home of NBA player props. Ready to place your first bet? Try betting on something simple, like picking how many points your favorite player will have. Go to DraftKings Sportsbook and make your first pick. First time? Here's something special just for you. New DraftKings customers bet $5 to get $150 in bonus bets instantly. Take it to the rack with DraftKings Sportsbook. Every point counts. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use the code JOHN, that's code JOHN, for new customers to get $150 in bonus bets when you bet just $5. Only on DraftKings. The crown is yours. Question for the pod. Do you think the Chiefs dynasty is over? Since they haven't had a top 20 draft pick in the last 7 years, it's kind of crazy, isn't it? Will they move up and grab an offensive lineman? I think I saw today on Instagram, I didn't watch much of the combine the last 2 days, that Will Campbell, the offensive lineman from LSU, ran a 4.98. Pretty good. And I saw in his press conference, got a little defensive. Like, I have never, find me somewhere on tape, I've given up a sack because of my short arms. It's like, and I'm not anti Will Campbell by any means. I remember a quote that he gave before the USC game, which they lost in Vegas early this season, which ironically USC had tried to cancel, but Brian Kelly wouldn't let him out of the game. Is Will Campbell gave a quote basically saying like, I'm not going to Vegas to hang out. I'm going there for a street fight or something. I just remember the quote. I'm like, kind of like this guy. But your arm length does matter as an offensive lineman, especially at tackle, because when you look at the arm length of the pass rushers, if their arms are several inches longer than yours, they can grab you and you can't grab them. Why do we bring up reach in UFC or in boxing? Because if I can hit you and you can't hit me, it's advantage or disadvantage for one of the guys. It's a problem. Now, does it define your career? No. Have there been some guys with shorter arms that have had long careers? Yes. I don't know why I'm going on this Will Campbell tangent, but I just think that I'm going to see exactly what his arms are. They are Will Campbell arm length. This is good podcast right here. So his arm measured at 32 and 5/8. Yeah, it's just not ideal. I mean, I think ideally with an offensive lineman, I would say 33.5. Trent Williams, 34 and a quarter. I bet Lane Johnson is close to 34. Lane Johnson's 35. But this is why some people believe that sometimes tackles turn into guards. Because I can have shorter arms playing guard or center because we're so close. At tackle, we're kind of off on an island, almost like wide receivers and defensive backs, right? But it's just us and we're hand fighting. Where inside, I got help. Uh, we're basically head to head. It's just a different collision. So I saw Jason Light say this. Well, Spytek said it, gave Jason Light credit, and then Jason Light kind of reiterated this. Is the way they had looked for years in Tampa and why they've had such a good offensive line is because when he was young and he was a scout for Belichick, and most teams do, but high level teams do constant studies. Howie Roseman, I remember when I was there, he had Hallaby, who's like the number two now, do nonstop studies. You're just doing studies. And the study Belichick had Jason Light do early on in his career was where do most starting offensive linemen in the NFL, all positions, play in college? And the overwhelming majority of them, tackles, guards, and centers, play tackle in college. Doesn't mean a guard can't play guard, but a lot of guys at a school, your best player plays tackle. And I remember my cousin played at Fresno State. The offensive tackle for his teams at Fresno State was Logan Mankins. Well, where did Logan Mankins play in the pros? He played guard because he didn't have the ideal tackle body. And I would imagine Logan Mankins' arm length had 33-inch arms, which isn't tiny, but I think ideally on the outside, you would like 34, 35-inch arms. So Logan Mankins at Fresno State, by far their best offensive lineman. Where do you put him? You don't put him at left or right guard. You put him at left tackle, and that's where he played. And Will Campbell might go on to be Logan Mankins. But, I think a lot of teams think that should he play tackle? Or, yeah, should he play guard instead of tackle? So I think that's the hard part about offensive line is like, do you trade up? Do you get a guy? I don't know. There's not a right or wrong answer. Whoever you take, whether you are the Chiefs and you sit there at pick 31 or whether you trade up to pick 19, like there's going to be a lot of pressure on that player to be good. When they took McDuffie and Karlaftis, there were a lot of pressure on those two guys to be good, and they've been good. Last year when they took Xavier Worthy, a lot of pressure on him. Well, by the end of the season, you're like, God, this guy's pretty sweet because he kind of is. So whenever you draft, like you're a good team and you draft late, there's not that much less pressure on one of the top guys, right? If I'm drafted, I don't know, ninth to whoever, there's a lot of pressure on me. But if I'm drafted to the Bills, to the Chiefs, to the Ravens, to the Niners, to the Lions, to the Eagles, everyone's fucking looking at me too. And then wherever, if I'm playing for the Chiefs, Jim Nantz and Tony Romo are calling half my games. And when I'm not playing in front of Jim Nantz and Tony Romo, I'm playing on Monday Night Football or Sunday Night Football. You could argue it's harder. It's like, yeah, this guy sucks on the Raiders. Like, yeah, every game, sandwiched between 10 other games at 10 a.m. or 1 o'clock. You're playing primetime games, the big game of the day. That wasn't a shot at the Raiders either. I'm just saying, like Tyree Wilson a couple years ago, the dude they drafted from Texas Tech, he's been a major bust. No one even notices. But when you're like a bust for the Packers, everyone's paying attention. So I don't believe their dynasty is over. And I think Andy Reid has a long history of figuring things out. Now, sometimes you need luck with offensive linemen, right? It's the 49ers got very lucky. Joe Staley retired, and Trent Williams like, yeah, the only place I'm going to okay a trade is to my guy Kyle Shanahan. Because if Trent Williams would have been like, trade me anywhere, he wouldn't have been on the Niners. At the time, the Minnesota Vikings offered a second round pick, and Trent just refused to sign a contract there or like come out of retirement for them. But like look around, look at other teams. When I was with the Eagles, Jason Peters was our starting left tackle, and he's going to go to the Hall of Fame one day. I'm pretty sure he was like an undrafted free agent out of Arkansas because he was a tight end. And then for whatever reason, him and the Bills didn't get along, and the Eagles traded. I don't even think they traded a high pick for him. If I remember correct, I think it was like a fourth round pick. So Jason Peters of the Buffalo Bills, early Friday. According to a source, Peters signed a 4-year contract with him. For Peters, the Bills will receive a first round pick. Okay, never mind. So they traded for Jason Peters. But think about that. So I was wrong on that. But how often is a legit starting left tackle? This shows you how much the game has changed. That was 2019. If you look in 2025, the equivalent of Jason Peters, someone who just thinks can be your starting left tackle and is worth at the time 4-year, $53 million. Uh, yeah, it's kind of crazy how contracts have changed. That was actually probably a decent amount of money back then, too, though. Is like this guy could be a starting left tackle and he's on the market. You'd get multiple ones. They just wouldn't be available. It's like, wait, you're trading your left tackle? How does that make any sense? But Jordan Mailata was a seventh round pick. They just kind of found him out of nowhere, right? I mean, out of Australia. So it's like they trade for Jason Peters. They find him in the seventh round. Like you just need a little luck. Like why didn't the Bills want him? Why wouldn't teams drafting higher than pick 28 be interested in trading for Jason Peters? That's a lot of offensive line talk. Not saying you did this, but others did. Their player rankings for the 23 draft all had Anthony Richardson as a top 15 prospect, but most mocked him top 7 based off where teams picked because of potential. Milroe, way better quarterback at Bama, even through coaching system change, and people have a third round grade on him. Why doesn't he get the potential bump? 6'2", not 6'4", arm, at 8.5, not a 10. Just curious. One thing that Anthony Richardson really had going for him, unknown. We didn't really see him play. He didn't. I think he had 13 college starts. He didn't play much. So the less you play, the harder it is to get exposed. Trey Lance was drafted number 3 overall. Had 1 season starting. 1. The more you play, what happens? The bigger your sample size is. The more you can get exposed. The more I can just judge your ability. Jalen Milroe has been starting for multiple seasons. So I have years of tape against all the teams. If Anthony Richardson had multiple years, maybe we're looking at a similar thing. I truly believe that. And I do think that Anthony Richardson's struggles probably terrify teams about Jalen Milroe. I think that is a fair connection because part of the draft, Maria does this all the time in real estate. Hey, we're looking at property X. It's on the market for $1.8 million. Well, what do? You run comps. Well, hey, their neighbor 2 years ago sold the place for 1.7, or hey, last week they sold this place for 2.2. It's a steal, or the opposite, 1.4. It's overpriced. No different with players. A huge part of draft meetings are bringing up examples of, I don't like this guy. He reminds me of player X, similar measurements, similar production, failure. Or I love this guy. He reminds me a lot of player X, measurement, production, personality. I see that. I remember writing Robert Woods. And I use Reggie Wayne as an example. Now, Reggie Wayne's a better player than Robert Woods, but Robert Woods is having a long career in the NFL because guys like that translate and can play in the league. So when you look at guys like Anthony Richardson and Jalen Milroe, most of them fail. Like, I think we just got to put that on the table. Most of them fail. I was pro Anthony Richardson because I learned from Josh Allen. Let's take big swings. But know this. If you bat 300 in the big leagues, you're a Hall of Famer. That means you're getting out 7 out of 10 times. So when you swing big, and most people swinging big, we're not talking Tony Gwynn. We're not hitting a lot of base hits. We're trying to hit a home run. We're John Carlos Stanton. You're going to strike out a lot. And I think the shitty part about when you take a swing at quarterback and miss, it just hangs on your resume. And It's a polarizing decision because we talk about quarterbacks just consistently more than everyone else. I feel like Brett Veach will go with a zero line, with an O line pick in the first round. However, he is known to take a swing from time to time. How far up could he go with our first round pick and Chris Jones in a trade? I love CJ, but I think it's time to get him and Kelsey off the books next season. Jones is 30 and still has value. Could they get up high enough to get Travis Hunter? Use the money and retain some of our young defenders and potentially have the best cornerback combo in the league. I think Hunter is truly special, and Andy Reid giving him 10 red zone snaps in every is very appealing. What would it take, in your opinion, to pull this off? It's impossible. So unless you are offering Patrick Mahomes to one of the top 3 or 4 teams, there is nothing you can offer them to get them to go from 4 to 31. You couldn't offer multiple first round picks for a team to go from 4 to 31. You're just kind of stuck. Now, I think if you throw Chris Jones in a package, you could trade up, I don't know, half the draft, but I don't think we've seen the Atlanta Falcons trade up to 6. God, it's incredible how good AI is. The Atlanta Falcons traded up to 6 overall in the 11 draft to select Julio. The Falcons were originally scheduled to pick the 27th overall. And what was the trade? I'm trying to see what they gave up. So they traded the third round pick to snag. Come on. Can you just give me the picks? So invested much. The Falcons. Why is this so complicated? Why can't anyone just fucking lay it out? 5 draft picks, including the number 27 overall in the first round this year and the team's first round pick in 2012. Feels like they should get more. They acquired the Falcons' second and fourth round picks this year. So they gave pick 27. They gave their second round pick. They gave their fourth round pick. And they gave the following year's first and fourth. And that was to go from 27 to 6. So you're going from 31 to 3. So it's even higher. It's a long way to go. This podcast is brought to you by TravisMathew. Apparel designed for confidence and comfort, no matter where the day takes you. Can I tell you about the New Age shoe by TravisMathew? I wore this for the first time a couple weeks ago when I went to the Super Bowl. And I wore this on the plane, comfort, lounging in style. Then I wore it to the gym when I was in New Orleans, trying to, stay in somewhat shape. I went for walks around the city, check out New Orleans, wore the shoe, and also wore it home. And I'm getting married in a week, plan on wearing these, 2 travel, 2 work out, and 2 walk around. Look how good these shoes look. I walked into a TravisMathew store in Scottsdale the other day. I wanted to go I'm a brand ambassador. And I looked at the shoe. They have this one in this color and another one kind of white and black. I was like, that is a great looking shoe. And I love comfort. I love looking good in a good shoe. And TravisMathew has blown me away with this bad boy. So these pair perfectly with TravisMathew pants. Have them on right now. So step into comfort, step up your game at TravisMathew.com. Visit TravisMathew.com for 20% off your first order. So I'll start with a poem just to make sure you answer the question. Maybe tell me something I don't know just to teach me a lesson. Recommend me some startups where I can make an investment. Show me how to scout an athlete, then give an assessment. Okay, so I had a buddy that worked for the Bengals social media team, and they were always filming players when they were off the field and asking them to play little silly games. But I was watching Nick Sirianni speak to the Eagles earlier this year, and one of their social media people was recording him while he sat amongst the players. Sirianni suddenly seemed to be startled upon spotting the camera and points at him saying, "What's the camera doing right there?" Who is that? What's going on right there? Then he realized who it was, and he was like, oh, my bad. Okay, I'm just not used to seeing you guys in here, or something like that. But his reaction gave me the impression that unauthorized or unexpected, eyes and ears in the building was something to be conscious of when discussing sensitive information. That being said, do NFL teams worry about espionage within their own building ever? Is that even the thing? Even a thing? The only time I've ever heard of anything like that would be the Patriots issue when they were accused of recording another team in the building. It's an interesting question. I would say to get access in an NFL team, right? If you're going to be social media or someone, they're not just going to hire someone off the street and then just let you in team meetings and coaches meetings and stuff like that. It's why people are very, very comfortable with NFL films. They have proven their loyalty is the wrong word, but their ability to handle sensitive information and not share it with anybody, right? But if I'm going to hire, let's say I'm John Middlekauff, and I go knock on the Cardinals building and I say, "Hey, I'm one of the best guys on social media. I can help your social media team, and I can help the coaches and the players. I'd be great." And I convince them they hire me. I just don't think on day one, Jonathan Gannon and the GM Monty are just going to be like, "Yeah, Middlekauff can go wherever he wants with the camera." No fucking chance. So you have to build up your credibility with those people, and then for them to let you in on those, team meetings, especially in season, they got to feel pretty comfortable with you. I think if you ever got caught, and I don't know necessarily how you would, but let's just say, what would it be worth if you are, because if you're an owner, like you're going to pay the equivalent of me to go in the Cardinals building, how much money? Plus, I only play you, it would have to be a team in the division. And then again, I only pay you 2 games a season. So it's like if I am that dude taping the Sirianni video or the Eagles video and Sirianni catches me, and let's say I am a mole and I am willing to give up information for the right price, like what opponent, like, well, how would that be worth it to the Cincinnati Bengals? Because if you get caught, you would get so much, you'd get first round picks taken away. I just don't see. It sounds very plausible and possible that a guy could get in eventually, for sure. I mean, if they can get into the CIA, FBI, or government, you telling me they can't figure out a way to get in the NFL? 100%. Is it possible? Yes. You are right. But whoever sends you in, like if I'm the mob and I get a guy in the the criminal system to help me out, he can help me out all the time, right? Hey, let you know they're looking into this. Let's think about The Departed, right? So, what's his name? I almost said Matt Jones. Matt Damon is hitting up Jack, who's technically Whitey Bulger, giving him all this information, but it's just constant back and forth. Where if I am, even if I'm the Cowboys, well, if I don't play the Eagles the next 2 months, having that guy in there, what's it really doing for me? If I'm losing a bunch of other games or winning, if he doesn't control, I just don't see the benefit. The risk isn't worth the reward. New listener, love the pod. My question is, have you ever seen any highlights of the rugby league? I have not. Also, what are your thoughts on the NFL and the Rams expanding the game and playing in Melbourne, Australia in 26? It has been a focus point of the NFL to expand the game internationally, but will it work with teams having to travel so far to Australia? I can't see it being a regular occurrence. I think, I mean, clearly the NFL wants people there, and wants to build up a fan base there. I mean, I've seen it in golf with back when Tiger Woods was the President's Cup captain, and they went down to Melbourne and at Royal Melbourne, they played there, and it was just an incredible event. I mean, by far the best two events of Live have been Australia. I think Australia is an underrated, just like love sports. And I think, and listen, I'm a big golf guy. Some of the best players on the PGA Tour over the course of my life have been from down under. And I think in football, boom, one of the best players immediately is like Jordan Mailata, left tackle. So I think from an athlete standpoint, you guys got a ton of just high level guys. And I think clearly the NFL is they're going to do it. I mean, it already got announced a couple weeks ago, and I would imagine it's going to work. It's a long travel. I flew to New Zealand when I was young with my dad when I was like 12 or 13. And I don't know how much different the flight is to New Zealand, Australia. I know somewhat similar, and it took forever. It's the longest flight I've ever been on by a wide margin. I mean, I've never been to Asia, which is long, but I mean, that's a long flight for football. I mean, think about the longest flight football teams are used to 5 hours, right? If I'm on the eastern seaboard and I'm going west, or if I'm on the western seaboard and I'm going east. That's why the Bears, I mean, think about the Bears. Do they ever have a flight longer than like 3.5 hours? It's actually a pretty incredible place to be. Same thing with Dallas. But if you're the Niners or the Rams and you have an international game in England, it's a 10-hour flight. That's a long time. I would imagine the Australia to LA flight, my guess would be 12 to 15 hours, somewhere in that range. That's a long time on a plane. After this season, it made me realize Andy Reid is on his last leg from a football perspective. If he was to depart after winning one more with Mahomes and Patrick, has a Super Bowl drought, uh, and Mahomes has a Super Bowl drought, where could you see him playing? I would say LA with McVay. I think you guys underrate. Andy could win. They could have won against the Eagles. They could win next year. If he's healthy, he's going to coach football. My guess is if he's healthy and in good spirits, Andy Reid is coaching the Kansas City Chiefs for the foreseeable future. For the foreseeable future. And if he were to retire in the next couple years, like this has kind of been a trio, right? It's been Andy, it's been Mahomes, and Veach. Well, Veach is, I don't know his age off the top of my head. I would guess 45 to 48 range. Like Veach isn't going anywhere. I mean, Mahomes was Veach's, I would say, like fifth love. I know he's got some kids and married, but I would say Patrick Mahomes is going to be with the Kansas City Chiefs. It'd be stunning. You never say never. I mean, we've seen Brady change teams, Manning change teams, Rodgers change teams. So listen, for his whole career, I can't say that, but for a long freaking time. Brady changed teams at 42. Manning changed teams because they thought his neck would never work, and Andrew Luck came out in the draft. Rodgers changed teams because he was, what was he, 38? And they kind of shorted him. I believe I have a word for what might accurately describe Big Dom in Philly. Factotum. Merriam-Webster Online Dictionary defines it as a person having many diverse activities or responsibilities, basically a jack of all trades, someone who can handle anything that comes up. I first heard that word mentioned years ago in an episode of Boardwalk Empire, and I thought it might be a fit for a guy. Factotum. So the way Factotum. Factotum. Big Dom's a factotum. Boardwalk Empire. I actually think this is that you heard that word describing an individual in that show. I think we might be onto something because I could see Big Dom being casted with Buscemi, and my favorite character in Boardwalk Empire was the dude that played Al Capone. Uh, Underrated show. Boardwalk Empire was a really, really good show. The one dude with the messed up face that was killing everybody. Uh, really enjoyed that show. Congrats on the wedding. First of all, appreciate it. Second question for the mailbag. Is it all possible that Shedeur Sanders has a draft day slide? I'm not overly impressed with his arm, and he's not an elite athlete. Probably won't happen, but wouldn't shock me. Love the pod. I have a hard time seeing him get past the Raiders. I do think it would be pretty stunning if he fell out of the top 10. I really do. We have seen Mac Jones and Kenny Pickett went 15th and 20th. And Shadeur's a better prospect than both those guys. I would say dramatically better prospect. So I think when you factor in part of a quarterback is supply demand, right? The reason Bo Nix and JJ McCarthy go with 11 and 13th or 12th, or I don't have that draft, the numbers in front of me, 10 and 12. both those guys in this draft would go in the top five. Part of the reason Shedeur Sanders is going to go higher, if Shedeur Sanders was in that draft, yeah, he might have gone pick 18, pick 20, right? But in this draft, when there's only one other guy that is like people confidently say just has more talent, because Cam Ward is physically more gifted. We talk about Anthony Richardson. We talk about Jalen Milroe. Like those guys do possess great physical characteristics. Cam does too, but he's also played at a really high level. Cam's a better prospect than Shedeur Sanders, though Shedeur Sanders might become a better player. I would be stunned if the Raiders passed on him. I think that would be pretty crazy. Now, who knows? I mean, maybe Spytek doesn't like him or Brady. I don't. Brady's going to play a role now evaluating these quarterbacks. So, like, what if Brady's not a huge fan? I guess the Raiders are a little bit of a wild card. Maybe I'm just saying that because everyone else I've heard say that. I'd be shocked if. Am I just repeating what I hear? Maybe I am. Why would I think that? Spytek, brand new. We have no clue who he's going to like. Brady is not only playing a role. Spytek has acknowledged, like, yeah, he's going to be very involved with the quarterbacks. I don't know what fucking Tom Brady's evaluation skills are. Pete Carroll, who knows? I don't know. Does he even have that much juice here? Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I guess he could. I mean, but I do. I will stand by. If he fell out of the top 10 where we sit now, would be a little surprised. We got a lot of teams need quarterbacks, and he's been pretty good. But I hear you. I mean, anytime you get a guy with an quote unquote average arm and not a great athlete, it's pretty risky. Now, if you're a great player, you're a great player. Hey, John, we grabbed NHL tickets to Game Time, far and away the easiest, fastest tickets purchase site I've used. Shout out for the John discount. I got you. Thank you. Appreciate that, Nick. What is your under the radar event you'd like to go to? The big events that get a ton of hype, obviously, they are the big ones for a reason. But there are some less national events that I think would be sick to go to. In Iowa, our high school state wrestling tourney sells out the arena in Des Moines, and it is awesome. My lesser nationally known event on my list is going to see Minnesota versus the University of North Dakota hockey. That atmosphere looks insane. Yeah, I think sometimes locally we all have events, depending on where you grew up, that mean a lot to that region. Like when I grew up, the California State Basketball Championships for high school used to be held at Arco Arena, this old shitty arena where the Sacramento Kings played. I remember being like in elementary and junior high and my dad going to the games. And this was like Jason Kidd and all these star players in California. Northern California would play Southern California. I don't even know if it still exists uh, in Northern California now, but I think we all have those kind of sporting events for sure. Like you said, I've been to the Super Bowl. I wouldn't say it's overrated. It's not like any other football game. I've been to the World Series. I've been to the NBA Finals. Uh, I've never been to a Rose Bowl. I would like to. I've been to the Rose Bowl, USC UCLA game actually. Sneaky snuck down on the field. While I was working in the NFL, I probably could have gotten in trouble, but I did it anyway. And I would like to go to the actual Rose Bowl. I would say a local event. Like I would love to go to the Masters, but like you said, that's an event. I play golf with a couple guys here. One guy's name is Bill and his son Nate, Bill Pacoda. And I mean Nate hits the ball like 350. Bill played the big leagues for a long time in the 80s and into the early 90s. He's just a great guy. He's a good player. Golfer. I mean, obviously he was an excellent baseball player. You have a 10-year Major League Baseball career. But he had just seen the Eagles at the Sphere. And he said it was incredible. And our video producer for this podcast, James, saw, I think, the Grateful Dead there, and he said the same thing. It was incredible. I've heard more stories on the internet or people in my life that have said, I've gone to a concert there, and I cannot even describe the event. But all I can say is, you got to do it. And anytime I get enough people that just say, you got to do it, sometimes that happens with a restaurant. Like you meet one guy and you're like, hey, listen, bro, this is the best tri tip sandwich I've ever had. I would highly recommend it. Like you could be like, well, I don't know you that well. Our taste buds could be different. If 10 people tell you about the same restaurant and the same tri-tip sandwich, you're like, this probably thing's gonna fucking blow your mind. I gotta get my mouth on that tri-tip, right? And I would tell you, uh, Firestone Grill in San Luis, also known as Doghouse in Fresno, I think is the best tri-tip in America. I remember someone telling me they were on their honeymoon and they were getting a ride somewhere, and they said, "Yeah, I'm coming from Fresno, California." And they're like, "Oh my God, Firestone Grill, the tri-tip to die for." And some things, Portnoy with some of his pizza reviews, every town has a place like this is the best pizza in town. I think sometimes when enough people tell you something, you just got to believe it, and that's what I hear about the Sphere. Like I'm not a Grateful Dead guy, not because I don't I've never even I don't even know if I've ever heard one of their songs. I know nothing about them. But if you told me, "Hey, John, I got a couple tickets. You want to go?" I probably wouldn't turn it down. I am a big Eagles guy, and he said it was, you got Joe Walsh up there. They've added Vince Gill. Obviously, they've lost members, have died, and Don Henley's still around. It's just like, it's just mind blowing. Bill said one of his sons, who's really into kind of, he's more like the artistic son, he said was almost in tears. It's just such a powerful moment. I'm like, God, I gotta try this. Now you could argue the Sphere is pretty big, but I still think in a weird way, it's not like if you just polled the amount of people who have been to concerts in their life, probably be pretty high. But if you polled those same people, if they've been to Vegas and been to this event, it'd probably be pretty low. So that would be one thing I would probably like to try. Can I tell you about my friends at Mando? They've taken care of me for a long time now. And listen, it's Arizona. It gets really hot, and I get very sweaty. And that's where my friends at Mando, they come in with the deodorant wipes. How about the deodorant spray? And just the whole body deodorant that you just put a little bit on. You can put it under your pitch. You can put it on your arms. You can put it on your balls. And I cannot recommend it enough. It's clinically proven to block odor all day. No one wants to smell. Created by a doctor, all products, baking soda free. So clinically proven to control odor better than a shower with soap. How do you beat that? 12 hours after a shower, you're still smelling good. I cannot recommend these guys enough. Mando Starter Pack is perfect for new customers. It comes with a solid stick of deodorant, cream tube deodorant, 2 free products of your choice, like mini body wash and deodorant wipes. Love those wipes. And free shipping. As a special offer for our listeners, new customers get $5 off starter pack with our exclusive code. That equates to over 40% off starter pack using the code GOLOW, GOLOW, at shopmando.com. That's SHOPMANDO.com. Please support our show and tell them we sent you. Smell fresher, stay drier, and boost your confidence from head to toe with Mando. Just started listening, and you're my go-to guy. You need to get a national show ASAP. We have one. It's called 3 and Out Podcast. We do it every day. Game changed. Anyways, my question as a diehard Cowboy fan who wasn't even born the last time they made the NFC, what the hell is Jerry doing? I keep convincing myself he knew what he was doing because he kept rolling off 12-win seasons. But last year as a Cowboy fan left you with no hope, and the future of the team, I hate to say it, is in trouble until he's gone. Yeah, I mean, I was talking about this yesterday with someone, my other guy, Fong, who we were playing golf with, is a diehard Cowboy fan. And on the first hole, I hadn't seen him in a while. He's like, "Brian Schottenheimer." I was like, "What do you know about him?" And we started talking, and he runs a financial firm, and Fonger was like, "Man, it sucks." He's like, "You have some of these people that have been watching the Cowboys for so long, and it just feels like it's inevitable what's going to happen." And I stand by this, and I think Jerry is no different than anyone in any walk of life. If you went to any business, whether it's one of the biggest companies in the world, like some Fortune 500 company, whether it's the Dallas Cowboys, or whether it's more of a mom and pop restaurant, if that business is very, very successful, and the 80-year-old patriarch of it all, who can't get it, like has everything he needs in life when it comes to money, right? So money does not impact his life, right? And he's been rich for a long time now, but loves the business so much that he's still constantly around and tells people how and what to do. it's usually not ideal. There are some outliers, right? Like it does feel, and maybe people that are close and work at um, Berkshire Hathaway would say, when Charlie and Warren in their latter years, no, R.I.P. Charlie, but Warren's still around. That it's almost better when they're not around. And maybe I don't think they would say that, but I do think it can be detrimental to progress when the 80, 85-year-old guy who does not need to be there all the time, should basically be in retirement, is extremely hands on. And I think that's the case here. And deep down, he thinks he's smarter than everybody else, which for a long period of time, earlier in his life, he wasn't wrong. He's a great businessman. He helped promote this great brand. And early, he made a great hire with Jimmy Johnson. They won. But it's been very rocky ever since then, relative to the hype that the Cowboys get. So I don't know what else to say beside, yeah, I mean, this isn't going to change anytime soon. Thanks for keeping the content coming. Coming from a Steelers fan, are there any quarterbacks coming out this year that could potentially have high upside potential outside of the obvious first round guys? Or just a sleeper pick that'd be intriguing if he falls into the second or third day range? I'm hoping the Steelers could take a flyer on a quarterback in rounds 3 and 7 and develop him behind whichever quarterback we keep this offseason. I do think that the two guys we saw in the national championship, Will Howard, who had a lot of success at Kansas State and then was excellent in the playoffs for Ohio State, and Riley Leonard, who kind of grew on me a little bit at the end, I just think are two guys that if you get in the third or fourth round, clearly super high character guys, really good athletes. Howard's a better thrower of the ball than Riley, but I think just intriguing mid round guys, right? I would say 15, 20 years ago, those guys were going like the sixth, seventh round. Now they're probably going somewhere between 75 and 125. I think Jalen Hurts is a better prospect than those two guys coming out of college. But Will Howard made some incredible throws in the playoffs. Riley Leonard made a couple too. But I would say those two guys would just be intriguing. Worst case, you're just a backup guy you want on the team, guy you feel good about, guy you could even get some physical running packages with, especially Leonard. And best case scenario, you kind of strike oil. Because I was going to say Jackson Dart, but I think even if he's not a first rounder, he's a top, I don't know, 45 pick. That's not who you're really talking about. So I would say those two guys come to my mind. Will Howard was making some incredible throws in the playoffs. I'm proudly on an island here. From a team building perspective, Joe Shane was absolutely right to let Barkley walk. The Giants were not good. A highly paid veteran running back is a luxury item, and the New York Giants need building blocks. Now, I get that it's a business, and there are PR and owner questions to consider on a move like that. But in a vacuum, letting Barkley walk, exposing Daniel Jones as inferior, and rebuilding last year was absolutely the right move. The fact he ended up on the Eagles and then he won a Super Bowl is a fluke. That is bad optics. But I wouldn't change the decision if I were Shane. Yeah, listen, Saquon Barkley doesn't run for 2,500 yards if he's on the Giants. The Giants aren't a playoff team if Saquon Barkley stays. I think where it got weird and bad is I hate the word optics because like the optics of watching Joe Shane operate, those weren't optics. That's his job. We just got to watch it and went like, what is going on? I do think it is fair. He seems like a nice guy. It does not seem like him and Brian Daboll knew how to run an offseason. So it's like, yeah, were they going to re-sign Saquon Barkley? Did it make a lot of sense? No, it did not. But when he looks at his owner and goes, he's not going to the Eagles. And then he goes to the Eagles, like, it's like, bro, your fucking job is to know this shit. And listen, maybe I'm a little jaded or have a perspective that isn't fair to some guys, but like, I was around Howie Roseman, and one thing Howie always knew, and this was a long time ago, he definitely knows, he just knew information. He never would have said, like, yeah, this guy's not going there. He would not have said that. Even if he didn't know, but he wouldn't have said, because Joe Shane's just kind of throwing it out there, trying not to look bad to his owner. He's not going there. No, actually, he is going there. And part of John Morrow was like, listen, like you said, it's not really fluky. It's like, hey, John, are we cool with letting him go to the Eagles? And John clearly was not. Like he said, I will lose sleep. Now, you could say, best case scenario, we let him go and expose Daniel Jones. They both almost got fired. Like the game plan was to be competitive this year. They traded for Brian Burns. They drafted Malik Neighbors. Like they thought they were, I don't know if they were going to be a playoff team, but not draft. What are they drafting? Third overall? Fourth overall? I haven't looked at the draft order in a minute. I think third overall. Yeah, the Patriots are fourth, so they're third. That was not the plan. Not the plan. Those guys are very lucky to have jobs. They really are. So overall, I would say I'm with you. I don't think most people that are mad about it even wanted to keep him because they realized the team sucked. I think it was more the way it was portrayed and told to them, and then experiencing that. And that's the number one reason that reports are that Belichick and the North Carolina Tar Heels are going to be the offseason hard knocks because no NFL team would touch it. And I don't, if I was a GM, no one takes Joe Shane seriously. Not a soul. Separate from winning or losing. Obviously, the losing didn't help. But after you witness that, you didn't even need to have worked in the NFL. You could have just been a lifetime fantasy football guy. And you're watching that, you go, listen, I don't pretend to be know everything here, but I know this is not how it's supposed to look. And I think all these GMs are like, no fucking chance. I am not doing that. Nope. Lifelong Lions fan. And I was wondering if you think the Lions should select a quarterback in the earlier rounds to back up Goff. I have a concern. If Goff would go down, late season Bridgewater signing, and ended up playing against the Commanders, tells me that Hooker isn't where the Lions want him to be. A solid backup, and Bridgewater is obviously at the end of his career since he was already retired. Yeah, I think he was coaching high school football. Just wondering your thoughts when we definitely need more defensive pieces and guards, interior offensive linemen to supplement the aging Zeitler and Glasnow. Possible Ragnow retirement soon as well. Good question. I would say, the old adage, and this goes back to, I think, Bill Walsh, and then Holmgren copied this, and the Packers did this for a long time. And Andy has made a career pre Mahomes of doing this, is drafting quarterbacks. And it doesn't mean like in the first round, even once you have a quarterback, just kind of drafting one every other year. And it's like, well, let's use our fourth round pick on, and I'm just going to use this guy because he was top of mind, Riley Leonard, right? Last year, let's use this pick on Tanner McKee. Let's just constantly be acquiring these guys. Fifth round, sixth round, seventh round, and you never know. Obviously, best case scenario, you find Brock Purdy, you find Kirk Cousins. But what if you just find a good backup, a guy that you feel comfortable with? So, yeah, I would never be opposed to drafting a quarterback. Now, you drafted, like you said, was it, who was your backup quarterback? Hendon Hooker? Is that who it is? Goff, Bridgewater. Is that your backup quarterback, Hendon Hooker? Why do I think it is. Yeah, that is. So I would do it. It was kind of crazy when Goff went down and Teddy Bridgewater was he injured? I kind of forgot about that moment. That was insane. Did Teddy Bridgewater, who had just won the high school championship like 2 weeks ago in Miami, get signed, and then Jared Goff gets a concussion? Maybe not. And then Teddy Bridgewater comes in the game. Big fan. Just wanted to say that a not actual Fugazi Friday segment, in addition to Fugazi Friday, would be pretty cool and informative. I would never thought wedding planners save so much headaches. I have wedding stuff coming up soon, and I proposed to my girl within a year. Yeah, they help, especially if you got a big wedding. Um, Figuring out Fugazis, it actually might be easier to do not Fugazis than it actually find Fugazis. Because sometimes, like, oh, that's complete phony, fraud, Fugazi. And other times you just go weeks with, like, I haven't even noticed anything. I like that. First of all, I hear about the Packers GM, and he's done a great job. And while I do like many of his moves, many of them have me scratching my head. Also, I just finished The Sopranos on HBO. partially because I remember you saying how good it was. I loved it and was wondering what you love about the show and how you feel about the ending. I just think Tony is the best character in the history of television in my lifetime. I think no one has ever sold the viewer on this is real more than that guy ever in television. Part of it was like as the years went on, he got fatter and balder. How he said "mudda." I love how he just his voice, but then you would hear him talk outside of shooting, and you'd be like, he doesn't even talk like that. I just think it's the greatest acting job ever. He was so believable from his anger to killing people to being like loving and supportive. I just think by far he's the most captivating and I would say best acted character in the history of American cable television. I mean, there have been, I think it's the best cable show of all time. Now, I'm a sucker for people getting killed, robberies, sex, the banter, the whole thing. I love it. Now, it's a little dated. You know, when you turn it on, like if you just turn on season one, the cell phone situation, not really internet. It's the late 90s. When was the first episode? 98, 99. Uh, Even the cars, right? You know, he's driving, I think in the first episode, that 90s Suburban with the square front. Uh, but yeah, it's just, he's just, to me, his whole crew, from Chrissy to Paulie to Carmela, I think that crew of like four or five core people are just like the greatest acting lead characters. It's just it's awesome. And again, I love mob television or movies, so it's got it all. The Jersey, the strip club, it's awesome. And then just as the seasons go, some of the other characters that come in, it's great. I'm a big fan of the pod. Listen after work. I'm a Seattle Seahawks fan located in Buffalo, New York, but I also follow the Bills really closely. I would consider myself a fanatic because a lot of my close friends are Bills fans, even though I wouldn't consider myself a fanatic. To my question, which is a two-part question, I saw an interview Sean McDermott saying that he wants the NFL to ban the tush push, which I find interesting because the Bills literally ran it multiple times against the Chiefs in the last game, although they were not as successful as he hoped. Do you think that him publicly saying this makes him a hypocritical moron like I hear people calling him? Or is it just politics of the business and him knowing that is if he ever plans on winning the Super Bowl, he might go against the Eagles? Yeah, I think it's more the latter. I think it's business politics is probably a decent way to put it. Uh, you just I just think they know they can't stop it, so people want it banned. He's a defensive guy, makes it easier to not have to coach. Uh, I think it's more that. As I'm sure you've heard by now, the league is changing to the Hawkeye first down technology, which you have to assume. I actually screenshotted this and I cut off that part of the question. I'll be honest, I didn't read that much into the Hawkeye, the technology to find out where the ball is. I think sometimes the league does this. They did it a couple years ago with changing of rules. Remember when you could? This isn't apples to apples, but you could throw the challenge flag on pass interferences. And overall, my point is I will be hesitant to anoint like the league got it right until we see it in action. Because we have seen and heard things before like, oh, this is going to be incredible. It's going to change the game. It's going to change the viewing experience. And then it happens. You're like, oh, this sucks. This is no, no. So I we'll see. And even if they get the technology, will they know how to use it? Um, Time will tell. Okay, appreciate everyone hitting me up at John Middlekauff, Instagram, firing those DMs. We will talk soon. Peace.